Aluminum Stairs, welcome aboard. I don't think we've ever seen you here before. Chris, welcome aboard. Happy Sunday. Are you guys playing in the shop today? So if you're just joining us for the first time, we usually go for about 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, and keep it tight. We're in the shop at Kinetic Precision, and we usually talk about everything. Also, if you're first joining us, I'll be on the Amateur Redneck Workshop at 4 o'clock on YouTube Live later today. I had to slide down the normal time today because of that. So we're starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as opposed to the usual 1 p.m. So it'll be interesting to see how many people show up. So as I usually ask the first people to show up, how's the audio? Hang in there, I'm just going to clean while we wait for more people to show up. Hey, welcome aboard. Just getting started today, an hour behind our usual time. And I'm just cleaning while we go here. Welcome, welcome. It's a beautiful day in southern New Hampshire today, Sunday. And we're expecting a cold snap. Go figure. Yeah, so Sundays, I got ahead of the curve on Friday, so I got caught up, and then today was going to be a light day, so I'm happy. I'll be on the Amateur Redneck Workshop today at 4 on YouTube Live. I'll put a link up after we finish this live. I'll post the link, or you could just search on it. I think the topic this afternoon is going to be drilling. So that should be interesting. But I had a busy day Friday and a little bit Saturday grinding. And we got 4-inch PFG Stones done. That was this week's mission. Barker McKilla, welcome. So yeah, I hope I didn't inconvenience too many people by pushing it down an hour today, but we had to. I had to because I was invited out to lunch. KT Works says, T-shirt weather out in Salt Lake City. Nice. And it was snowing last week and it's 75 today. That's awesome. Yeah, welcome. Chris is here. The party can start. Hey, Chris, how are you? So, yeah, just puttering. I mean, cleaning up the grinder, which is almost done, and it'll be ready for the next mission. We emptied out the fabric continuous roll filter on the grinder last week, I think, and that was like 10 months of filtering. Oh, hey man, thanks. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I always say this. I can't cross correlate people's names on Instagram with order names, so I have no idea who has PFG Stones and who doesn't. But thank you for the kind words that you like your product. Excellent. Today's batch, or this weekend's batch, was absolutely glorious. I'm very pleased with how things are coming out. And I've been working on, you know, just process efficiency without sacrificing quality, and that's going well also. So probably made a couple of small improvements. One of the things I'm experimenting with is 3D printed templates. Think of templates for drawing circles. You know, those things that back in the day when we used pencils. So you 3D print a template that will locate all of the stuff on your chuck, like your, you know, the hold down devices, the, you know, grinding vise, or maybe you have a series of grinding vices. So you plop this piece of plastic on the vise, you drop these things into their holes, you turn on the mag, and you take off the frame, and everything is at least close to set up. So that's an idea that I really like. So I did some measurements today, and I made a drawing. Actually, this was yesterday I made the drawing, and I'm almost ready to 3D print a template to try to use as a first step on setting up a repeating process on the surface grinder. Because I find myself a lot of times, you know, remeasuring, you know, jogging around stuff that I put on the surface grinder table, and that's wasted time. If you could put down a template locates the stuff you need, turn on the mag, and off you go. So that was a thing that I worked on this weekend also, and I recommend thinking about that sort of thing if you're a surface grinder person. Even if you're doing other stuff like on a mill table, or even on a fixture plate, where you're gonna plop down stuff that you're then going to clamp, having, you know, cutting yourself a template that you could put the stuff down, and then drop your screws in. That way everything is the same all the time. So that was a little idea I came up with. I'll have to show some of that at some point, but that's something you can do with a 3D printer. So Chris, what are you up to today? Did my delaying of the live here for 1 hour impact your lifestyle? Because I think it impacted everybody else's lifestyle. Machinist Guru, welcome aboard, man. Yeah, it's pretty interesting because last weekend I think we had, it was either last weekend or the weekend before, we had like a record number of viewers, and then we went down. Thanks for your comments, KT Works. Yeah, it's a simple idea, and you could, you know, even you can cut yourself a plastic template on a CNC mill, just as well as 3D printing it. You're 3D printing. So Chris says he's 3D printing hole plugs, setting up the vise, and double checking the mill. Awesome. Perfect day for it. Yeah, that's exciting. I like what you've been doing with the new mill, Chris. That's going to work out really well. Did you put a fixture table, a fixture plate on top of your trademark? Is that correct, or did you do that from the beginning and I'm just not remembering? So Chris has recently been, he purchased a trademark mill used and has been cleaning it, updating it, upgrading it. So you do not have a fixture plate. I know where you can get one. Anyway. Just a vise. It's not just a vise. And welcome aboard. I'm going to guess that you pronounce your name Zyman, but I don't know. Welcome. KT Works wants to know what the hole plugs are for, Chris. And I want to know too, because if you need hole plugs and you don't have a fixture plate, inquiring minds need to know. So one of the fixture plates that I built, Chris says, I used to play bass for just a vice. Yeah, I don't know, Chris. I don't know about that. I am fixing to get ready to do some rotary grinding for the purpose of arbors for balancing. Chris says he made some vice clamps with 3 holes, but only used 2 bolts, so he needs to plug the holes. That's what TIG welders are for, Chris. So let's see if I have this handy to show you. Oh yeah, here it is. So a while back, I made an offset plate. This is for the grinder, and that's a bunch of quarter 20 holes, and this is really useful. This one is this is a 12-inch plate, 12 inches long. And then when I got the new grinder, which has an 18-inch chuck, I wanted a bigger one. So this was the one I made later. If you've been following me for a while, let me just cover this up so I don't scratch it. By the way, these are just mild steel. We did some experiments in hardened steel, but it was not working out. Of course, this one is even heavier. This one's 1 inch. Same pattern. Look at the finish on that baby. And this guy was done on the new grinder. And where's the there's a marking on here which I got to show you. There it is. So that basically gives the date code, when it was made. It says offset plate 6x18, quarter 20 threads, 1/2 inch deep, 30 pounds. So this is kind of a warning if you go to lift it up. So this guy is set for the new grinder, and the idea is that this can sit 90 degrees to the normal travel, and you can set up your spin jig, your rotary jig on a sine plate if you're doing angles or whatever. But this was a fun project, learned a lot. We actually tried to harden this, and the goal was to harden it using case hardening, and I found a place down in Massachusetts that was doing case hardening, and the idea being, in talking to them, that it wouldn't warp much in the case hardening process, and they sort of gave me an idea of how much it would warp, because you want it to warp less than the depth of the case hardening. So when you come back to grind it, you don't grind through the case hardening anywhere. And it turns out that we tried it. That was posted to my Instagram, and it was no good. It warped, and I could have done mechanical straightening of it. That was one of the options, but I was not happy with that particular process. So one day in the future, we're going to try another process, which is vacuum nitriding to get the surface hard, but we haven't done that yet. So we're working on that. So this is a good project for you if you have a surface grinder and you have the other stuff in the shop. making yourself a surface plate, offset plate, grinding it provably flat. It doesn't have to be super crazy, because when you put your spin jig on it, you're going to be indicating that in anyway. But it's a good exercise to get it as absolutely flat and parallel as you can, and that works out. Again, this is not magic steel. This is just I believe this is 1018 steel. Pretty simple stuff. Anyway, if anybody has any questions about any of that stuff, feel free to ask. Just don't ask me any questions about drilling, because that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon on the Amateur Redneck Workshop. Or do ask me questions about drilling, and I'll bring them to the Amateur Redneck Workshop at 4 o'clock. Okay, let me put these away. I should have made that stuff out of the lightweight steel, but there's no substituting for mass when it comes to wanting to hold tenths. Okay, so that's put away. So, in case you are unaware of it and you might be interested in PFG Stones, I put a if you're a current PFG Stone customer, I know one of you guys is, and you wished you'd ordered a lid, but either it wasn't available yet, or you just didn't order it. From now until July 4th, you can order a PFG Stone lid to cover the top and get free shipping. That's for existing customers only. So if you ordered stones without a lid, and now all of a sudden you want a lid, or they weren't available then, and now you want them available, now's your time. So check out the website. There's a discount code, which if you just go to kineticprecision.com, you'll see it. It'll give you the discount code. So how's everybody else doing today? We're starting to get a good crowd going. What are you guys up to in the shop? Bart Harkema, welcome aboard. I saw some of your good posts this week. Thank you for sharing. So if anybody has a question and you're on a phone, hit the little question button down at the bottom and put your question in there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just put it in the text in the chat, and we will start batting it around viciously. Hey Bart, would you like to be a guest today? If you want to be a guest today, we'll add you in and have some fun. Stoke Machine is in Vermont. No VW bodywork. Where in Vermont are you? I love Vermont. I've spent a lot of time in and over Vermont flying gliders. Anyway, we got caught up on orders. So Monday morning, you're in Addison County. That's not helping me. Give me a town. So for example, I used to hang out in Warren, Vermont, home of Sugarbush, and flew out of Sugarbush Airport. Welcome aboard, guys. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay. So, Stoke Machine, you're welcome here anytime. Another glider pilot. That's excellent. You know, I often think about my days of flying gliders and how many gliders I have in the shop right now in the form of equipment. Fad Radcater, welcome aboard. Yeah, I get it. So you got your license. Did you get your license at Sugarbush? Because that was home to me for 5 years. Literally every week I was there. So I don't want to. We're not going to turn this into a glider pilot podcast here. But it's nice to meet another glider guider. So what are we doing in the shop this week, everybody? We'll pick a topic and dive in. So I was working yesterday. No, it was Friday. I'll tell that story in a second. Prototyping while the grinder was running. Yeah, I try to be as efficient as possible. Oh, Sugarbush was awesome. We had thermals, we had ridge, we had wave. It was the whole vocabulary. It was a great experience. So you got yours at Wurtsboro. I know Wurtsboro. And then you bought a discus and took it to California. Got it. Yeah. So we might have met in the air one day. Not too close, but you know. We used to talk to the guys over the mountain up in New York. What was the name of the New York group? I can't remember, but there was a bunch of guys in New York we used to talk to on the radio all the time. Oh, you're making trophies for local sport organizations. That's fantastic. I was just talking to my daughter about using the laser in conjunction with other stuff to make plaques and trophies and stuff, which is always an option. Yeah, it's really funny. I think back on a story from the glider days before I really was a machinist, and there was a character. I'm not going to name any names. There was a character at the airport who had an ego the size of the continent, and he crashed a two-person glider while taking up a ride, and it turns out that the handle, which was operating the flaps, broke as they were coming in to land. And it was a bad weld that was badly ground. I don't think it was his fault, but that was my first exposure to bad welds. So Fat Radcater is looking at a DRO for a surface grinder. I've never put a DRO on a surface grinder, but I have had a DRO. I put a DRO on a Bridgeport that was a Newall. And I was super impressed with the ruggedness and the quality. So look at Newall, see what they have to offer. I'm pretty sure that they have a appropriate grinder flavored DROs. Chris, the pragmatic machinist, is drawing, printing, prototyping an aluminum wallet. Nothing groundbreaking, but possibly a slight bit different than most. That sounds like fun. That is awesome. And it sounds like you're going to have some interesting different technologies there. When you say printing, is it going to be you're printing paper, or you're doing 3D printing also? An aluminum wallet. I thought about that. My current wallet is starting to wear out, and I thought maybe I should think about doing something like that. Anyway. 3D printing, got it. So let's see, what can I tell you about the 3D printing department? We're cranking out lids now. So if you haven't seen them on the website, I'll show you mine. You know, here's the lid. So for years I've made PFG stones with these trays, which I consider a trademark. And then finally I got yelled at enough that people wanted a lid, so we started making these nice lids. They don't snap or anything, they just sit on top. And these are now available on the website, ready to go. But all 3D printed. Chris, keeping you off the streets I would consider a valid and worthy effort. I'd be worried about the streets. So we did more resin printing this week. I'm doing a client project upstairs in Antenna World, and I needed the plastic housing that my client's stuff goes into because it affects the antenna. It's pretty close to the antenna. So I 3D print them. I measure the dielectric properties of the printed material, which in this case is a resin. So I know that the dielectric constant is very similar to the dielectric constant of the injection molded parts that they're going to be using, and that I print them and then I use them in prototyping and measuring and tuning the antenna. So 3D printing is happening around here, I wouldn't say constantly, but almost constantly. So that's pretty good. Also, I've just about, no, I think I have used up all of my filament that I used to make the trays and the lids from eSun, and I've switched over to the other guys, which every time I bring this up, I try to remember their name. And I think, Chris, you gave me the name last time. But basically, it's the Amazon brand of filament, and it's doing quite well. I'm very happy with it. And I print, before you ask, it's PETG. So that happens every week. We're printing out something. Yeah. So does anybody have any grinding questions? I'd be happy to answer any grinding question. Overture, thank you. Overture is the brand of filament that I'm using now for the Prusa printers. All right, so it's question time, and if you guys have questions, we'll get them answered, and if not, we're going to wrap it up early. I don't have any big long stories to tell you. It's been busy around here, but not totally crazy. The T-shirt today was from Crummy Welding. Roy Crumrine made this for me a while back. All right. Well, you guys are sounding pretty quiet, so I think we're going to wrap it early today. Oh, no, a question did come in. I'm not paying attention. Let's see. Can you laser engrave to different depths or contrasts? Yes. So it depends on the process you're using. So the engraving that you saw, for example, on the vise that I recently modified, which we named Clarence, that's actually called annealing, and it's not engraving per se. You're not blasting steel out of it. you're discoloring the metal in the same way that we do when we heat treat. So I'm going to take your question in two parts. One is the annealing and one is actual engraving or ablating. So in annealing, you can mess around with the power and duty cycle and speed of the laser to get that temperature in that range. You know how we have colors associated with the range of tempering colors. I have not played with it yet, but apparently you can do that. In the other direction, you have ablating, when you're literally blasting material off of the metal, and yes, you actually have very good control over the depth of that engraving. In fact, I don't have it here; it's in the basement. I have a little plaque, which you might have seen in some of my posts, which says "Do not look into laser with remaining eye," and I did that one to different depths, and I think I did one that had 30 passes, and it was about 2/1000 deep in aluminum. So that may not seem like much, but when you see it, you touch it, you feel it's pretty impressive. And that's with a 30-watt laser. So it's power, time, how your pulses are set up, and then you could decide how deep you want it. And recently I did some brass where we also were tuning that in. That was for a friend of mine. So I hope I answered that question. Follow up, Fat Radcator says, follow up on plastic diamond wheels. My spindle is only 3450. Okay, we'll talk about that. And Loctite. Let me take care of the Loctite. Yeah, sure, you can use Loctite. Just remember, metal to metal, right? And pressure, and that's going to get you your electrical contact. And if that screw has Loctite on it, it's not going to hurt it. The other thing is that if you're putting two tubes together, right, you have not only the electrical contact, but even if you had a thin insulation like aluminum oxide, if you had thin insulation around it, if you calculate the capacitance across that thin insulation, you'd realize that it's almost as good as having a good electrical contact. So don't use the red Loctite, or you'll never get it apart on screws. But if you use blue Loctite on your connections, on your screw threads, do it. It'll keep it from falling apart. Yeah, okay, now I read your second post. Yep. Yes, so Bart, I hope we answered that question, that yes, you do have control over contrast and darkness and depth of engraving. And there's a lot to be played with there, which I haven't had time to do. Okay, Fat Radcator asks if we could follow up on plastic diamond wheels and his spindle is 3450, which is fine. So by plastic diamond wheels, I assume you mean resin bonded diamond wheels. So let's talk about this for a second. In the world of diamond, so why do we have diamond wheels? We have diamond wheels because we're grinding something that's very hard, and it's not steel. Something like glass or ceramic, aluminum oxide. I just said the same thing 3 different ways. So there's a couple of different flavors of diamond wheels you can get. Here's one. Okay, so this is, if we read the nomenclature, okay, it says, I know this is mirrored for you, I'm sorry. 1A1, that means just a straight wheel. 7X, 7 by 1/2, so that's 7. I don't know why it says, 1/2 inch wide. So it's 7 inches in diameter, 1/2 inch wide. MC-F. That's fine. And then it says X equals 1/8. That's the thickness of the diamond. 100% concentration. That's kind of an arbitrary number. Max RPM 5,000. And then, of course, I wrote here, because I looked up the spec sheet, that this is actually a 220 grit diamond wheel. And if we look at the edge, okay, you don't see much, but if you run your fingernail on it, you can probably see the marks my fingernail left on the wheel. You could feel the diamonds. So this is called a resin bonded diamond wheel, and calling this plastic is actually not a bad thing. Okay, so you can run these at 3460, 3450 all day long, no problem. Okay, you'll notice a couple of things. I have one of my balancing rings on here. I know that sounds like a commercial. That's because it's a commercial. If you go to rin.gg, you'll learn about balancing rings from Kinetic Precision. So the important thing on using these wheels is that you don't want to have to true them unreasonably, right? So if you take a lot of material off, it's expensive and it takes a very long time, and I'll explain why in a second. So it's nice to have a little play in the hub of the wheel so that your adapter can move around a little bit. Some of these wheels are bored almost exactly 1.2500 inches, so when you put your hub on it, it's like locked in place. You actually, if it comes out true by indicator, that's fine. But if it's not true and you think you're going to true it in by removing material, I learned this from Robin Renzetti. You're better off opening up that hole a couple of thousandths so that you can then put this in, tighten it a little bit, and then tap it in until it's perfectly concentric. That's step one. And then step two is truing the wheel. And I just say hi to everyone who is just joining. Welcome aboard. So when you go to true a resin bonded diamond wheel, there's a couple of ways to do it. The traditional way, I got to open my drawer here. The traditional way is a brake controlled truing device. This is a Norton classic. Evening, Firmworks, welcome aboard. So yeah, this is a classic tool. I'm just wiping off some oil. And the way this works is you put this down on your table, okay, and you have your wheel, and you bring your wheel down into contact with it. Now your wheel is running 3450, so you're running 5,000 surface feet per minute. This is aluminum oxide here, okay? And if this was fixed, let's just do a thought experiment. If this aluminum oxide was fixed and you brought a diamond wheel down at 3450, all it would do is grind the aluminum oxide away, right? I do this all the time when I make stones. So now it spins. So now let's just assume that this is a perfect bearing, and you bring that wheel down to touch it. It's going to spin this wheel up to match the speed of your grinding wheel. What are you doing now? Nothing. So what happens is in the rear, we have a centrifugal brake, and there's 3 weights made out of bronze, I think, with a spring. And this thing spins up, and then the weights fly out and put the brakes on, and it will reduce this to a constant velocity. And this constant velocity minus the velocity of the wheel is what gives you about, I think it's 1,200 surface feet per minute, thereabouts. And at that slow speed, it will allow this to knock diamonds out of the matrix. So imagine that you walk up to an apple tree, okay, and you have a stick and you knock an apple out of the tree, and out down comes the apple. That's what you're doing. So you're knocking diamonds out of the matrix. So that is the traditional way to true a diamond, a resin bonded diamond wheel. I'm not going to go deep into this because we don't have time. The second way you could true a resin bond diamond wheel, which is also well documented by others, is just take some mild steel and take a flat mild steel plate, which is going to be sacrificial, and grind mild steel with the diamond wheel. We never grind steel with the diamond wheel because the diamonds thank you, Firmworks. I got it from somewhere. I don't make the stuff up, but I appreciate it. The diamonds are made out of carbon, and when the temperature goes up in the diamond, that carbon and that heat wants that carbon to go diffuse into the steel, and it basically, the steel is acting like flypaper, okay, and it's ripping diamonds out of the wheel. So you could use a piece of mild steel. You should look for a video by Solid Rock Machine Shop. Awesome guy, and he shows you how to do that with a piece of mild steel. You can also mark the plate, and you could look at the patterns on the plate to see how your wheel's doing. The third way you can true a resin bonded diamond wheel is with molybdenum. Okay, and this is sort of the same thing, but this is how I true my wheels. So there's my molybdenum dresser, and that is we use up the molybdenum here, and when it gets too short, and actually this one's getting really close to too short, you can see the hole, we put a new piece of molybdenum in it. And molybdenum, if you're not familiar, is just another metal. I'm looking for, here's another piece. It's just that's molybdenum. So the molybdenum does a similar job, except there's a problem, okay? It's a problem, or it's a feature. In the first two cases I gave you for how to true a resin bonded diamond wheel, the wheel speed is sort of the native speed of the grinder, on the order of 3,400, 3,600 RPM. With molybdenum, it's like this guy. Okay, you have to slow it down. So if you have a VFD on your grinder, and if you don't, you should, because it's hugely valuable. You could slow your motor down to about 1,200 RPM. It gets your surface feet per minute down to 700 feet per minute. And now, when you take a pass over that piece of molybdenum, it does a similar thing. The molybdenum is, you could think of it as, it's muddy, it's sticky. So if you go run through the mud wearing your galoshes, the mud could suck your galoshes off your feet. Think of it that way, with molybdenum and diamonds at the right speed, which is 700 surface feet per minute. So those are three ways you can true your resin bonded diamond wheel. Okay. When I grind stones, I use a metal bonded diamond wheel. Stoke machine. You're correct, 100% correct. So I'm going to put a punch line on it in a second here. So let's get back to the resin bonded diamond wheel. After you've trued it, and I use my, this is a 1/10 indicator with a a little piece of 2000 shim stock taped on there, okay? And so you can run the wheel by finger and just rotate the wheel, and you can observe how true your wheel is that way. So once you're done truing, and you could also run your indicator across the wheel, make sure you're happy with the flatness of the wheel. So once you're done with that, you are done truing, but you have not done any dressing. So Stoke machine, you are correct. So now you have diamonds in resin. Think of it as rocks in mud. It's like running a grader over a muddy gravel road. Can you get it smooth? Yeah. So now your gravel and your mud is all at the same level. Are you ready to grind? No. So now what you would really like to do is scoop away the resin from around the diamond and let the diamond poke out of the resin. And the way you do that is super simple. Do you notice I don't have to get out of my chair to get the stuff? So this is a dressing stick. So after you're done truing, you now go in and you dress. And what the dressing stick does, and you use this wet, okay? So either you have full flood coolant or you have a bucket of coolant and you soak the stone in it. It's very porous. Okay, this has got no oil in it like a sharpening stone from Norton does. And then you jam this into the wheel, and you use up like 3/4 of a stick when you do an initial dressing on a wheel. You use up a lot of this stuff, and you can go from the wheel feeling just like totally smooth until finally you could feel the diamonds poking out of it. So by jamming this aluminum oxide dressing stick into the wheel, you're preparing the wheel to do actual work. And that's what Stoke Machine's talking about. The rule of thumb is that you use a finer grade, one grade finer of dressing stick grit as compared to wheel grit. So if you're going to do a 150 grit diamond wheel, you want a 220 grit dressing stick. I think I only have 220 grit. I've got 150s and 220s, but I generally use up the 220s, and that's what this is. This is very friable. Oh, Bart, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I bet those pictures exist. Bart says he would love to see some 500x microscope pictures of the dressing results, which I think is a great idea. Hey, Stoke Machine, that's a really nice thing. Thank you. You know, yeah. Maybe I'll work on that. Maybe I'll get some pictures. Stoke Machine. The key is that I've got to explain stuff to myself, so I like to simplify and get it down to something that is understandable. It's also, you could also remember it. That's the best thing. So there's no magic here. There's no secrets. I've told you everything I know about truing a resin bonded diamond wheel. The only difference between a resin bonded diamond wheel and a metal bonded diamond wheel is the cost of the wheel multiplied by at least 5, okay? Multiplied by 5, and the difficulty of truing it multiplied by 3. Not dressing it. Dressing it's pretty straightforward. And again, I use the molybdenum. Once the wheel is set up, I hit it with molybdenum on every size change. Balance, true, dress. So, yes, I would add balance, true, dress, balance. So this is a commercial. Because balancing is easy with these balancing rings, and assuming you have a balancing stand, which is coming, it's still coming. There's no reason not to balance the wheel every single time you mount it. And especially in the beginning, when you balance true and dress, it's time take the wheel off, balance it again, and then you're good to go. And you could hit it again, like if you're using molybdenum, I just hit it again. So by making those things easy to do, yeah, BTDT, it's like R2D2. By making those things easy to do, you're going to do them. And that's my process now. And I got to tell you, I could see the difference. Things are nice. Well, thank you for those kind words, sir. I appreciate it. So it's 2:52. Any other questions? I want to wrap up in 8 minutes. If one good question could bring us in for a landing. You're welcome, sir. It was kind of a slow start today, and I think that's because of my time change to 2 p.m. Eastern. So let me know if that was bothersome or preferable. B or P. Bothersome or preferable. 2 p.m. Otherwise, I'll go back to a normal 1 p.m. Okay, any other questions? Do not eat these. Indiana John says preferable. Fad Radcater says all good. I get a little disturbed when somebody's agreeable. Just saying. New grinder or old Boyar Schultz? Well, let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with an old grinder. I made lots of good work on 2 old grinders, a Harrig and a Micromaster, until I got a new grinder. But every one of them, I made good quality work. Octane Work Holding, welcome aboard. Danny Cam, welcome aboard. Yeah, one thing that you have to be aware of is that there are grinders out there that are clapped out. So you really have to check it out. The age doesn't matter. The condition matters. And yeah, Fat Radcater says it depends on your wallet. That's true. But if the machine is solid, the machine is solid. That when I bought the Micromaster, well, both of my other grinders were great, but the Micromaster was known good iron. That iron was not worn out. I've talked about it before, and I knew I could fix everything else. So, and I did. I literally did. But it turned out great work. So don't be afraid of an old grinder as long as you or somebody you trust inspected it. And be prepared to run away if it's not quite right. They will wear out, especially if they were in a production environment. Any other questions? The old Micromaster that I had was never in a hard-working production environment. I saw signs on the machine that it was in a repetitive. It was well used. Then it was modified, I think. There's no logbooks with these things, but it was all of the ways and everything were in great shape. Do I have felt wipers on my Brown and Sharp? Did I have felt wipers? Yes. there were only 2 felt wipers that I had to replace, and they were on the head, on the sled, and I did buy felt. In fact, once again, I don't have to move very far, and here it is. It's kind of funny. You use this much, you use that much felt, right? And McMaster-Carr, the number's not on here, but this is marked F10, which I assume is felt grade 10 or something. 1/4 inch thick, 12 by 12, McMaster-Carr. So yes, I replaced felt wipers. That's interesting. Yeah, it didn't have a lot of felt wipers, but internally behind the louvers, there were a couple of wipers on the top surface, and I was inspecting the lubrication system, and there were 2 drippers on top, and I was able to see the felts were pretty dirty, so I wanted to put new ones on. Stoke Machine says, you can send the rest of the felt to me for my clausing. I'll use 1% of it. We should probably do that. We should probably keep sending this square foot around and see how long it takes to get used up. Nothing in the shop manual, you replace the top ones. Yeah, that's what you have to do. So once again, look, when you're looking at an old grinder, look for the wear, inspect it, use your indicators. Talk to, if you're not comfortable, talk to somebody, and if the machine's good, the machine's good. All right, guys, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Maybe we could squeeze one more question in, and then I'm gonna wrap it up, and I have to rest up for 4 o'clock. I've been going. I was out to lunch with friends, and they came back, and I'm joining you. So one of the guys found a Norton brake-controlled truing device at an auction, like a relatively recent one, and it came with a videotape, a VHS tape of instruction on how to use it. And so I said to him, see if you can get that transferred, because if that video is different from what's on YouTube, from the old Norton videos, maybe we have some more knowledge that we can get. Well, excuse me, it turned out that it was exactly the same video, so we didn't learn anything there. Fat Radcater says, you can always sell the old grinder to a knife maker. That's true. Yeah, there you go. Yep, that was you. So now you know something about how these things get used if you didn't know it already. Also, you might notice that I kissed the bottom of it. But you use the right tools for the right job. All right, guys. Well, happy Sunday. I hope you guys are having either fun in the shop, some time with family. The only depends on the kinds of knives they make. That's true. So give me some feedback, either in a DM or whatever, about time, because I moved us from 1 p.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern. If the general sense is you like it, maybe we'll leave it here. I don't know. But, okay, 4 o'clock Eastern time, the Amateur Redneck Workshop will be live on YouTube. And I will be one of 8 people or 9 people in on a discussion about drilling. It should be fascinating. Have a great weekend. Have fun. Stay safe. And keep all 10. Take care, guys.